All right, good evening. Welcome to the Tuesday, April 14th Covington City Council meeting. Calling this meeting to order. In compliance with state law, City Council and special and regular meetings will be held in a hybrid format with in-person, telephonic, and virtual options for public viewing and participation. Krista, can you do the roll call, please?
Yes. Councilmember Soltis? I am here. Councilmember Wagner?
Here.
Councilmember Hartsock?
Here.
Councilmember Hartshausen?
Present.
Councilmember Reed? Mayor Pro Tem Porter? Here. Mayor Smith?
Here.
We have a quorum, Your Honor.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to excuse Riley Reed, please?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to excuse Riley Reed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, excuse Riley. Will you all please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Up next, are there any changes to the agenda?
No changes, Mayor.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, approve the agenda. Now up to public communications, end of session legislative report, Emily Shea with Gordon Thomas Howell, Honeywell Government Relations. Thank you. Hi.
Hello, good evening, Mayor, Council. I believe Brianna Murray's online. If not, she'll join shortly here. But great to see you all again. My name is Emily Shea. Along with Brianna Murray, we really serve as your eyes, ears, and voice in Olympia and serve as your state lobbyists for the city. It's a pleasure to be here with you all and to be able to advocate for the city of Covington throughout 2026 legislative session and beyond. Before I get started, I did want to remind you all that I forwarded along an end of session comprehensive written report a couple of weeks ago. That report, which included materials for tonight and has detailed budget summaries and descriptions of each bill that passed the legislature that may have a nexus with issues relating to city function and the city of Covington's priorities. It's a very comprehensive written report that I encourage you to reference if needed, or if you find that type of reading enjoyable, feel free to read it its entirety, totally up to you. I spend my Sunday nights doing that. This evening, I'm going to provide an overview of the 2026 legislative session, discuss the outcomes of the city's priorities, and wrap up talking next steps. So to give a little bit of context, it was the second year of the biennium, and it was a short session, lasting 60 consecutive days. The primary objective of a short session is to make supplementary adjustments to the biennial budgets, which the legislature did successfully. Democrats continued to hold strong majorities in both chambers and shape the policy agenda, including efforts to address federal funding and related policy concerns. The governor also developed his own budget proposal, which served as a draft framework for what he expected to see reflected in the final legislative proposal, or something he would ultimately be willing to sign. During session, many legislators began announcing that they would not seek re-election. As of now, more than 10 members have publicly stated they will not run again. We expect more to be coming. The legislature finished on 8:30 p.m. on March 12th, after some concerns that members were not coming to an agreement on a data center tax exemption, transportation bonds, and a 24-hour-long debate on the millionaire's tax. Democrat legislators were able to reach an agreement on all three budgets passed on the final day of session. Governor Ferguson had 20 days from the passage of that budget to sign it as is, veto it altogether, or line item veto certain aspects he did not approve of. He signed and partially vetoed all final budgets into law on April 1st. In addition to adopting budgets, the legislature considers over 12,000 bills this year and ultimately passed 267. Since this was the biennium's second year, any bill that did not pass must be reintroduced with a new bill number in the next cycle. So to provide you as a reminder, the primary objective of a short 60-day session is not to rebuild the budget from scratch, but to adopt supplemental changes to the budgets that passed last year. That includes adjustments to all three state budgets, the operating the capital and the transportation budget, largely based on updated revenue forecasts, policy decisions, and emerging priorities. Heading into this session, there was a significant discussion about the impacts of last year's tax package, including increases to the B&O tax, capital gains tax, and the estate tax. Democrat leadership also showed interest in exploring a millionaire's tax, both to address the unintended consequences of the prior tax changes and as a possible step toward an income tax framework in the future. Despite these discussions, the state's economic and revenue forecast showed relatively flat growth, which constrained how much additional spending could realistically be added this year. The operating budget, which is by far the largest you see on that screen there, it funds day-to-day state government operations, most notably K-12 education, higher education, behavioral health, and social services. For the 25-27 biennium, the operating budget totals $80.2 billion, which represents about a $2.4 billion increase over the prior budget. Notably, the budget assumes a repeal of the increase in estate taxes enacted during last year. The rainy day funds, however, are backfilled with revenues from the Left One retirement account. The final operating budget leaves $1.3 billion in total reserves, which is only about half of what the state treasurer recommends as a prudent reserve level. It also relies on approximately $2.2 billion in new taxes and fees, including tax exemption closing on data centers, prescription drug wholesalers, and insurer taxes. To put this into perspective, the operating budget is roughly 5 times larger than the transportation budget, which is why you see such a large difference on the slide there. The transportation budget totals $16.6 billion. This budget funds highway preservation, ferry operations, transit, and major infrastructure projects. While it's significantly smaller than the operating budget, it's still about twice the size of the capital budget. The capital budget is the smallest of the three, totaling about $8.5 billion. This is your brick and mortar projects, funding public and nonprofit construction projects that are non-transportation related. It's primarily funded through the sale of bonds, and a portion of the operating budget is dedicated to paying that back, the debt over time. The capital budget also supports several important grant programs, including housing and homelessness projects, local fish culvert replacements, and backfilling the Public Works Assistance Account. I know that was a lot, but moving on to what I'm really here to discuss, which is Covington priorities. The city identified priorities this year for the 2026 session. And those are the 4 items we'll be going into a little bit more depth on. So transportation, aquatic center, public defense, and public safety. First was to protect the timing and funding for SR 18 widening and safety project so it can be delivered in a timely fashion. There was a dual objective of reminding budget writers that the second phase of the project, Tiger Mountain Summit to Issaquah Hobart Road, is still not funded. The supplemental transportation budget retains all the funding for SR 18 and the new timeline needed for WashDOT to complete the project advancing. However, there was no new funding allocated to projects, and budget writers are becoming more unified in their vision of shifting from the historic practice of developing revenue packages every few years to pay for larger investments over time. There is not necessarily unity on what alternative approach should be, but multi-billion packages phased over a decade or more may be a thing of the past. We also continue to include a statement on the city's legislative agenda, highlighting the need for further state investment in local transportation preservation and maintenance. This year, the priority has evolved from being solely a stakeholder concern to also becoming a legislative priority. The governor, Senate, and House are all in agreement that addressing the backlogs is essential. On top of significant changes from last year's tax increases, the supplemental budget allocates an additional $40 million for WashDOT Highway Maintenance Program, $300 million for the Highway Preservation Program. In addition to those amounts, there is $65 million in federal funding for state highway flood recovery and $45 million for local highway flood recovery. These funds are specified for transportation infrastructure damage solely for the December 25 weather events. Finally, the city's capital budget request included $723,000 this year for the aquatic center to replace emergency aging liner and renovate the bathroom to comply with certain ADA standards. The House draft budget included $309,000, and the Senate budget included a little bit more at $375,000. GTH Gov and city staff urge for the inclusion of Senate version total to be prioritized in order to receive the amount needed to finish half the project, so the aging liner. Although the final budget did not include the full amount requested, the city did secure the necessary funds, the 375, that will go towards that full replacement of the liner, which is most urgent. Given that this was a supplemental year and the average appropriation size for a local community projects was $250,000, it's still a major win for the city. The 47th LD legislators, including Senator Kaufman, who prioritized this as her #1 project in the district, deserve special kudos for her efforts on securing the funding for the project. And I just want to quickly note, it's probably hard to see as that's a lot of information, but I'm going to briefly go over it in my own words. During the session, the city supported the legislative priorities of the Association of Washington Cities. Beyond Covington's specific budget outcomes, several broader issues emerged as important for cities statewide, as well as the city of Covington. First, land use and housing remained a major focus for the legislature. While the state continued its trend of adopting unfunded land use mandates, cities had more opportunity this year than most to provide input during bill development. Worth noting is a significant bill that did pass that requires cities and planning counties to allow indoor emergency shelters and housing in additional zoning categories when needed to meet comprehensive plan housing targets. On homelessness policy, House Bill 2489 did not pass. That bill would have limited cities' abilities to enforce ordinances related to life-sustaining activities in public spaces unless adequate shelter was available, also known as the Homeless Bill of Rights. Some, but very few, public safety legislation moved forward this year. The first establishes minimum qualifications for elected sheriffs, including background check requirements. The second regulates the use of automated plate readers, aka or ALPRs, aka law cameras, which are increasingly used by local law enforcement agencies to investigate and prevent crime. Public defense was another major issue this session, following a 2025 Washington Supreme Court decision that significantly reduces public defender caseload limits over the next decade by roughly 2/3 by 2036. Throughout the session, lawmakers continued discussing the impacts of how cities and how public defense would be funded going forward. That conversation intersected with the proposed millionaire's tax. Early versions of the proposal included $150 million per year for local governments, but only about $15 million would have gone to cities, far short of offsetting those losses. Ultimately, the bill that did not pass, the millionaire's tax, did not include any funding for public defense. Compounding the issue, the millionaire's tax proposal included substantial revenue loss for cities, an estimated $100 million annually in local sales tax losses, increasing by 2030. In response, AWC and GTH Gov successfully advocated for the creation of a local government mitigation account, which intended to reimburse cities for the actual sales tax loss starting in 2030. The bill includes legislative intent to set aside that $200 million for mitigation, so basically offsetting the losses, no win, no loss. Looking ahead, we expect a trailer bill next year to address technical fixes and unintended consequences of the millionaire's tax, especially since the tax itself will not take effect until 2029. Although several other bills this session would have provided cities with cost relief for public defense, and which the city of Covington actively supported and testified on, none of them passed, including the proposal to establish a task force to examine these issues. Finally, there were a few notable developments related to revenue flexibility and state shared revenues. First, House Bill 2040-42 and Senate Bill 6027 passed this year that modestly expanded local tax authority to support housing, children and family services, and public health clinics. While it does not provide broad budget relief, it offers limited tools that may benefit some cities, including expanding the 1/10 sales tax for housing purposes and House Bill 1406 sales tax credit for housing that authorizes support for operations and maintenance of existing facilities rather than just new. During the session, the City of Covington and GTH Gov testified in support of the section of the bill that would provide that additional flexibility for the use of funds. The city emphasized that the bill would give Covington the ability to better support its critical partners that are stretched thin while still maintaining a balanced investment in affordable housing and behavioral health capacity. Second, the state largely maintained its commitment to state shared revenues, though it did not fully offset those losses from the long-term fiscal impacts expected from tax exemptions adopted alongside the millionaire's tax. Finally, the capital budget allocates $375 million in bonds to the Public Works Assistance Account to backfill that transfer made to the operating budget and to maintain financing for infrastructure projects for cities. This approach also reserves funding for the Model Toxic Control Account, which is important to our port partners. My favorite part, not everyone's, is next steps. So now that the legislative session has officially concluded, the focus shifts to what comes next. First, I encourage the city to consider ways to express appreciation for the legislative delegation, not only for advocating on behalf of Covington, but also for their time and commitment to public service. As you know, being an elected official can often feel thankless, and genuine recognition from local leaders is meaningful. I'm also happy, as well as I continue to brainstorm ideas for outreach or recognition. Looking ahead, the Association of Washington Cities will begin discussing its annual legislative priorities on May 1st. A key part of that conversation will focus on enhancing local government funding, including identifying what new funding elements or structures may be needed to better support cities moving forward. This time of year also moves quickly, particularly as we enter an election season. Several legislative seats are up for re-election, including some of your own, and significant changes are on the horizon. Finally, it's never too early to begin thinking about priorities for the 27-29 legislative biennium. This fall, we'll come back and we'll update or develop the city's legislative agenda to reflect some of those completed items we talked about, or identify some new priorities, recognizing that next session will be a budget year and that longer session once again. Advocacy is a year-round effort, and I will continue working with the city's legislative delegation, other lawmakers, and city staff to advance Covington's priorities. There's that last slide there. Thank you for your time and attention. Representing the city of Covington truly is an honor and a privilege. I now hand the conversation back to you all and remind everyone that I'll be sending along some monthly reports starting in May. They're going to be a little bit more tight and kind of just topics majorly going on and some updates as we work through the interim period. Finally, please find my contact details if you don't want to bug Regan with everything. And I've follow up with questions too, so happy to answer any questions up here as well.
Thank you, Emily. Are there any questions? No? Well, we appreciate your representing us down there in Olympia and all the hard work and all the good we did this last session. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Okay. We've heard from Dana Newts with the Covington Chambers not feeling well tonight, so we won't have an update from the chamber. So you join me in front of the dais. We've got a couple of proclamations to read. So our first one is about Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and Katie Garvey, CEO of King County Sexual Assault Resource Center, should be online. Okay. So, whereas sexual assault is pervasive, every 68 seconds, someone is sexually assaulted in the United States. And whereas sexual assault impacts everyone and anyone, whereas sexual assault impacts everyone and anyone can be a victim of sexual violence, yet it is among the most underreported crimes for many reasons. And whereas survivors who are already most marginalized face additional barriers to reporting, such as language, immigration status, or disability. And ending sexual violence requires us to address racism, sexism, and all forms of oppression that contribute to the perpetuation of sexual assault. And whereas by working together as a community, we can alleviate the trauma of sexual violence by ensuring supportive resources are available to all survivors, while standing up to and actively disrupting harmful attitudes and behaviors that contribute to sexual violence. Now therefore, we, the City Council of the City of Covington, do hereby proclaim April 2026 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month in the City of Covington and urge all citizens to join advocates and communities throughout King County in taking action to prevent sexual violence by standing with survivors. So, turning this over to Katie Garvey and see if she wanted to say anything in response.
Yes, thank you so much for having me here with you all tonight. My name is Kate Garvey, and I am the Chief Executive Officer of the King County Sexual Assault Resource Center, a nonprofit that serves communities across King County, including Covington. I'm honored to accept the Sexual Assault Awareness and Prevention Month proclamation on behalf of our organization. And I want to begin by thanking the City of Covington for consistently choosing to invest in and support survivor services. That commitment matters. It sends a clear message that survivors are seen, believed, and worthy of care. This proclamation matters in so many ways. It's more than just words, it's a commitment. And the survivors are listening and they're taking note of this. To the survivors in our community, I want to say to you clearly, you are not alone. Sexual assault is far more common than people realize. Half of women and 1/3 of men will experience sexual assault in their lifetime. And for people from marginalized communities, whether due to disability, race or ethnicity, or gender or sexual identity, the risk is even greater. The truth is, every one of us likely knows someone who has experienced sexual violence. The impact of that trauma can be profound, and it can affect a survivor's mental, physical, and behavioral health. And yet we know recovery is possible, healing is possible, and with the right support. At KSARC, we see that every day. In the past year alone, we served about 5,000 survivors and their family members, and nearly half of those we serve are children. We know that young people are among the most vulnerable to experience sexual violence and often the least likely to be believed. Sexual violence persists in silence, and it thrives when we look away, when we assume it doesn't affect people we know or communities we're part of. And that's why this issue can feel so overwhelming, and creating change doesn't require doing everything at once. It starts small with everyday choices. It might look like speaking up when you hear victim blaming or not laughing at jokes that make light of sexual violence. It can be honest, age-appropriate conversations with young people about consent and healthy relationship, or it can be as simple and as powerful as telling someone, "I believe you," and then helping them connect to support. And one easy place to start is by sharing our resources. You can share KSARC's 24-hour resource line at 1-888-99-VOICE so that anyone who needs help knows where to turn. We often say we can't change what we don't talk about. Covington, thank you for your leadership, your partnership, and your willingness to be loud about sexual assault. I know that together we can create a community where survivors are supported, believed, and where prevention is possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Kate's already been sent a copy of the proclamation. We'll make sure to get a copy.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. So up next, we have proclamation recognizing Harbor Day. So whereas in 1872, the Nebraska Board of Agriculture established a special day set aside for the planting of trees. This holiday called Harbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and is now observed throughout the nation and the world. And whereas trees can be a solution to combating climate change by reducing the erosion of topsoil by bringing water, moderating temperatures, cleaning the air, producing life-giving oxygen, and providing habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, building materials, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and well-being. Now, therefore, we, the City Council of the City of Covington, hereby proclaim April 24th, 2026 as Arbor Day in the City of Covington, and urge all citizens and businesses to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect trees and woodlands and plant trees to benefit current and future generations. For this to you, proclamation. Thank you. And that's you. at the board.
Oh, okay. Well, for those who don't know me, my name is Laura Morrissey. I'm chair of the Covington Parks and Rec Commission. I was with a couple group friends before I came and said, yes, I'm going to receive this proclamation. What should I say about trees? And they said, well, you should say that what goes good with the color purple? It's the color green. And we laughed about it because my favorite color is purple. And that's part of my identity. And I was thinking about that on the way here. What's a part of Washington's identity? What does Washington go by? The evergreen state, right? Trees. What's Seattle's identity? What do they go by? The Emerald City, trees. Washington's identity is deeply tied in its trees. And so I'm really pleased to see Covington take an active interest in maintaining trees, caring about trees. I know that all departments in Covington are working towards keeping our tree canopy healthy, safe, and growing. And this is just a piece of that. And the Tree City USA status that we keep every year is a reminder to our community that we do care. We do care about our trees and want to be of our trees for all the reasons that you said. So thank you.
Okay, picture time. One, two, three. Trees on three. So I should have done, that would have been good. Oh, darn it.
Okay, we're now up to our first public comment period. Speakers will state their name, organization, and whether they are a Covington resident. Comments are directed to the city council and not the audience or staff. Comments are to be related to city business. Comments are not intended for conversation or debate and are limited to 4 minutes per speaker. For attendees participating by Zoom, click the raise hand button. For attendees participating by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand. Once the city grants permission to speak, press unmute in Zoom or dial *6 to unmute by phone. For those wishing to comment on the public hearing we have later, that will be coming up in the next agenda item. But for those who want to speak on any other city-related business, this is your opportunity to address the council. So I've got some people that signed up. If you want to wait till the public hearing, just say I want to wait. Melody Correa. Okay. Danielle Wallace. Okay. Teresa Bechtold. Okay. Ed Gruce. You want to address the council?
What?
You put down that you want to speak to the council. No. Okay, no worries.
Yeah.
Really
down, so I can't
understand it. No, sorry.
Mayor, I believe he is here to speak for the public hearing.
Public hearing, okay. And Nathaniel Whitman? No? Okay. Is there anyone online that would like to address the council at this time? Okay. Seeing no one, approach the anyone else in the council chambers want to address council? No? Okay, seeing no one approach the dais or no one raise their hands online, I'll close this first public comment period. We will have a second one at the end of the council meeting. We're now up to approval of the consent agenda. You get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Been approved or moved to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So we are now up to the public hearing. We'll hold a public hearing to hear and consider testimony regarding consideration of an ordinance for a 6-month extension of a moratorium on battery energy storage systems, BESS facilities. Selena.
Hi. Hi, good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, we are holding a public hearing to consider renewing our existing moratorium for BESS facilities within the city of Covington. So this is a matter of procedure. We've been here before. This is the fourth time staff has brought this back to the council. The first time was for the 1-year moratorium in 2024. And then under state law, we have to renew it every 6 months thereafter. So we are here tonight to renew that moratorium. This renewal would go through October 2026. And I believe that we will probably have to renew it one more time, and I'll talk a little bit about why. So just a bit of background. In 2025, this was initially put on the Planning Commission's work plan. And as you know, that was a year of state mandates, as we just heard tonight. We had a lot of mandates, so the commission did not have time or opportunity to take up this topic. Mandates are a little bit lessened, not quite gone, but there is a little bit of breathing room for the Planning Commission to actually take this up this year in 2026. So in January, I had approached the council around the scope of work. To what degree do we want to evaluate these BESS facilities within Covington so that we could provide some scope direction to the Planning Commission? The council gave that direction. And in March, I provided that direction to the Planning Commission so that they understood the scope of what we'd be looking at under this moratorium and ultimately the zoning requirements. Since then, we have updated the Planning Commission's work plan because now we actually have a topic to move forward on. So they heard about the topic in March. In May, we've invited Julian Lau from PSE and Chief Napier from the fire department to come and talk to the Planning Commission. So they'll be coming and fielding questions directly from those sources. As you know, I am a generalist. I am not an expert in all things battery. So we will be relying on the industry and the folks that are really driving the need for these facilities to come and talk with the folks that are going to be writing the zoning. Couple other things had come up too since the summit discussion. Our neighbors in Maple Valley are undertaking their BESS legislation as well. So I've been talking with my cohort there on what direction their planning commission is going to be taking. Auburn also adopted some newer regulations that are slightly different than King County, but actually probably more aligned with where Puget Sound Energy wants to go. So we are doing a little bit more research. And so why I think that we might be extending past October 2026 is that while the commission really understands the goal is to have some zoning in place so we can alleviate this moratorium, they really want to be diligent and step through that process. So we're, as staff, going to make sure that they've got the information they need and feel confident to then suggest zoning regulations to the council. We'll have a study session and do all that good stuff with you folks throughout the year. The last thing I just want to mention for the record is that in this last legislative session, there was some decisions that came out regarding approaching just energy, renewable energy in general. So that was Senate Bill 6355. And there's going to be a group of folks that are going to be commissioned to look at where these facilities will be. It's not just battery energy, it's transmission and all the aspects of protecting our grid. So more data is going to be expected to come out in 2027 towards the end of the year. So while we may get some basic zoning regulations for Covington as a city, ideally, hopefully by the end of the year, beginning of next year, I think at that point, there will be more about this topic in 2027, 2028, but we will have to wait and see. And that concludes my presentation, Mayor.
Right. So tonight we have a public hearing to receive testimony from the public regarding, I should get the name right, regarding an ordinance for a 6-month extension of a moratorium on battery energy storage system facilities. This being the date set and the proper notice having been posted and published in accordance with state law, the public hearing is hereby declared open. Celine, you've already provided the report, or is there provide another?
Nope, that's it.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
The ground rules for public comment during the public hearing are as follows. When your name is called, step up to the microphone, give your name and state whether you are a resident of the city of Covington. Please limit your comments to 4 minutes. The city clerk will set a timer, which is up here, that will go off when your time is up. When the timer goes off, please wind up promptly. So let me get my list that we just went off of, and we'll go from there. So first up, Melody Correa.
Good evening. My name is Melody Correa. I'm a resident of Snoqualmie and a director at SVRE. And I'm here tonight to express support of the decision to renew the moratorium on the city of Covington that the city of Covington has already put in place to protect its families and children. I just want to start by saying thank you for the care and leadership you've already shown on this issue. It's clear that you're not approaching this lightly. You have multiple real proposals in front of you, and you've made the prudent decision to pause and take time to understand the implications. As we've been getting up to speed on these projects, we've learned that one of your proposals is less than 1,000 feet from Matson Middle School. As proper documentation regarding emergency and evacuation wasn't provided in our best proposals, the first round of materials, we did some research ourselves. In the event of things like thermal runaway, 330 feet to 1 mile is the recommended isolation distance by the EPA and ERG recommendations, which we have to reference because there is no best specific regulations. This means immediate exposure to toxic acids and thermal radiation during a fire event. How could anyone possibly propose a site with that kind of exposure risk, effectively a stone's throw from a middle school with hundreds of students, is beyond comprehension. Additionally, a 1 to 2 mile impact radius is a mild case impact. Depending on a number of factors, battery chemistry, plume dispersion, the wind and rain that day, the impact radius can extend 10 to 15 miles. We don't believe the citizens of any community should have to absorb that risk at the benefit of a developer's profit margin. Not in Snoqualmie, not in Covington, not anywhere else. An important question we should all be asking ourselves, why has it become the duty of the community to demonstrate harm, when in reality it should be the applicant and the governing process's jobs to demonstrate with clarity and evidence that the project can be implemented safely? The moratorium you've already put in place to protect your residents is just common sense. Thank you for choosing common sense. We're here in support of your approach and willingness to demand better for your people. Thank you for being leaders of your community. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Danielle Wallace.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. My name is Danielle Wallace, and I am the president of the newly formed nonprofit Snoqualmie Valley for Responsible Energy, SVRE. I stand before you tonight in solidarity with your city's leadership and your willingness to take action on behalf of your residents, families, and children. As a fellow citizen of King County, I'm here tonight to express support of the decision to renew the moratorium the city of Covington has put in place. As you may already be aware, the Snoqualmie Valley is now facing the situation you all found yourselves just a few years ago. We are facing the installation of an industrial scale battery energy storage system, or a BESS, facility directly in the heart of our community within less than a mile of thousands of homes, multiple schools, and direct threat to sensitive watersheds and ecosystems. I can't imagine I'm about to tell you anything you don't already know, but I wanted to talk to you about the alleged benefits that the developers coming to our communities are continually trying to tout but have no real merit. The first thing that we hear about is demand and the need for more capacity. But what's funny is that Washington actually exports a very large amount of electricity, among the biggest exporters in the United States. If we already have so much capacity that we're able to export it out, why is this a primary selling point at the facility? So the conversation will turn to grid resiliency, the idea that this electricity will somehow be stored and made available to communities when we need it. What a great idea in theory, except almost none of these facilities have proper islanding contracts that would require them to provide dedicated electricity to the communities they surround in the event of things like a power outage. Supporting the community is an exception, not the rule in these proposals. So then we'll move on to jobs. Sure, perhaps for 6 to 12 months, and then the majority of jobs related to the facility will be moved to remote monitoring. The impact of the facility will live on the community for decades. But proximity to the grid, they'll cry. Funny how utilities have been exporting energy beyond state lines, but that the idea that the developer might have to incur the burden of the cost to properly site their facility so that communities around them won't take on severe high-risk consequence seems to be an almost unfathomable concept to the proponents of these projects. Needless to say, the SVRE is in overwhelming agreement that the regulations and codes that are in place do nothing more than establish floors, minimum standards for the site and the facility, not accountability for how impacts move through surrounding environments or who is responsible when they do. We do not believe that clean energy should come at the expense of public safety, and your city has made it clear that you do not either. Thank you for your leadership. I'm here tonight simply to say that you're not alone in this work, and we applaud you for the leadership and action you've already taken. Our community is asking many of the same questions you've already been faced, and we're here as committed partners with you, especially as these conversations escalate to King County and the state. Thank you for being the kind of example the rest of us can look forward to. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Teresa Bechtold.
Good evening. I don't have the pleasure of living in Covington. I'm also from Snoqualmie, and I'm a director of the Snoqualmie Valley for Responsible Energy, here tonight to express support of your decision to renew, hopefully, the moratorium that you've already put in place. Across the United States, industrial scale energy infrastructure, including battery storage, is cited according to a consistent set of priorities: separation from residential areas, placement in industrial or previously disturbed zones, and where access to that infrastructure minimizes environmental and community risk. This reflects a fundamental principle of land use planning. As the scale and potential impact of a facility increases, so does the need for distance, buffering, and appropriate zoning. There seems to be a common trend among the cities that are facing this here in Washington, Covington, and Snoqualmie. Site selection is highly convenient and highly fiscally beneficial to the developer, but creates long-term conditions for our communities that are not easily reversed. We, like you, are asking ourselves, should the burden of adapting the grid fall on the developer, or should the burden of risk fall on our communities? There is no community that should have to absorb long-term risk to minimize inconvenience and infrastructure investment that these developers can certainly afford. When industrial scale infrastructure is introduced near schools and into a residential landscape, it does not simply occupy space. It changes how that space functions. It introduces new constraints on emergency response, new environmental considerations, and new risks that were never planned for the location, all within areas that were not zoned or intended to carry them. We believe that we can face this risk together and that we can solve this problem through partnership and demanding a higher standard of rigor. We're here to support the work you've already bravely started, and we stand alongside you as these conversations continue. Thank you so much for your leadership.
Thank you. Up next is Ed Bruce.
Hey, my name is Ed Cruz, and I'm a Covington resident. So I'm just speaking from what I remember of the last meeting I attended, where we had some of the quote official people here. And what I gathered from it is the storage for that energy was not going to be available for Covington. So that's kind of like a big, light bulb, like, why do we have to have it here if it's not going to benefit us as a community? The problem, of course, that everyone has mentioned is the environmental impact, but also the safety aspect of how many Teslas have just spontaneously combusted. Well, how many Teslas would fit in that building? So quite a few. And then, of course, the environmental risk of destroying the land for that, the risk of, if there is a fire, as everyone else has mentioned, the air quality impact and whatnot. And then the last thing is it's a terrorist target. So people, the terrorists, they don't know who it benefits, but hey, here's a target, let's hit it, because it'll disrupt something somewhere. And obviously what happens here from that attack. So because it doesn't directly benefit this community, yet we take all the risk for it. So it's kind of like, why would anyone want that? and it's like, playing the angel's advocate. Well, of course, backhanded dealing and stuff, which I don't believe any of us here are capable of that. But just the same, it's like, why is it so important for them to come here? What do they present as an incentive for us to have it? When as I mentioned, at the last meeting that I was able to attend, they didn't specifically give us any reason. They're trying to say, oh, well, you benefit from the construction, but that doesn't benefit us. We don't have any construction companies in this city that can handle that big of a project. And, I've worked in low voltage. I've been a low voltage electrician for the last 12, 14 years. And I worked at the big Amazon facility down in Kent. Well, that was good for 6 months. No more advantage to me after that. And, so most of the labor is not going to be local labor that would go into it. And sure, fast food and some restaurants will benefit from people working it. How long does that last? So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Nathaniel Whitman signed up to speak. Is he in? Oh, there he is.
I'm Nathaniel Whittam. I live in Covington and I attend Kentwood High School. I don't see how the battery could really be beneficial to us, especially with so many like schools nearby, like Crestwood, Mapleview, Matson, Covington Elementary, and Kentwood High School. That's like 5 off the top of my head nearby. If like the battery, anything could happen, that puts thousands of kids in danger, along with everyone living nearby. I mean, I've lived in Covington my whole life. I've seen the city grow a lot since I've lived here, constantly more houses being built, people moving in even more. I don't see how the battery could help us, especially if it doesn't benefit the city. I don't see why we should take all the risks of having it here. Thank you.
Thank you. That's my list of people that signed up to speak. Is there anyone else in the council chambers that would like to speak on this public hearing? Yeah, James. No.
Come on, James. How could you? Didn't sound very
Yeah, I was like,
Good evening, council. First of all, I apologize for my attire. I came directly from soccer practice and our friends in Snoqualmie mentioned
Mr.
that I
DeLay.
left my whistle on.
Mr. Dillett, can you announce who you are and if you're a Covington resident?
Yes, I am James Soleil. I'm a Covington resident. I live right next to Matson Middle School. That's how I got into this whole entire adventure. So anyway, yeah, sorry for my appearance. I feel it's not appropriate. So you guys are probably one of the most educated on BESS facilities out of any city council, probably in the nation. I did send you a new email today. I don't know if you guys had a chance to look at it. The topic of that email is something that you almost never hear anybody speak about, and that is, what do we do when there is a fire? What should be our rules? What should be our processes for when it is? Where should liability and accountability be held? What should we do to protect ourselves from the strategies that BESS developers have done in other scenarios where there's been BESS fires? I don't know if you guys remember, but Surprise, Arizona was one of the first BESS fires where basically firefighters, I learned new information I haven't shared with you before about this. Firefighters basically received a 911 call from somebody that lived about, I think it was 3/4 of a mile away. Because in their air-conditioned Arizona home with all the windows and everything sealed up and closed, they smelled smoke. And they looked out a window and they saw, oh, there's some smoke raising off in the distance. So they called 911 because all the systems failed, even though it had all the latest, greatest safety systems and sensors and alerts and alarms and everything. So the fire department says, all right, who's closest? All right, we've got a fire truck that's, 5 miles away. We'll send them. It just so happens that a hazmat guy was on this fire truck that day. he was just assigned. So he pulls up and he sees this cloud of smoke that was about 2 to 3 feet off the ground, and it was kind of waving and, you know, just flowing off across the desert. And he's like, oh, well, I've got my meter. So he pulls it out and he's just like, okay, we need to back up because we're not hazmat and we need to get hazmat on scene. Because as soon as they pulled up, or as they were driving there, they basically looked and they said, oh, this is permitted as a concrete, what do you call it? Just a concrete slab. So when the fire department, you know, was looking up, oh, what are we going into for where the general direction of this is? It's like literally a concrete slab. That's how it was permitted. So not only are there permitting issues and we need to do things with permitting, and I would love to bring some counter arguments to what Julian will present because he has no safety concerns at all. So if there's a way I can join as a
James
person.
comment to
Sorry.
council.
So long story short, he basically, you know, there's this big, huge entire, you know, best fire where a whole bunch of firefighters were injured. Technology rules have changed, they've improved, but the point of this is that best is now just a concrete slab. The developer disappeared, they didn't pay for any cleanup, they didn't do anything, it's just sitting there as a abandoned thing. Now fast forward to Moss Landing, January 2025. There are thousands of people that are still suffering from exposure symptoms, and it's literally people that are as far away as 42 miles downwind. So where the wind, as they mentioned, the weather, rain can contain things a little bit more, but you never know if you're gonna get lucky and it's gonna rain, and then it's gonna go off into runoff. So there's so many complications with this, and I hope you guys, you know, continue to and vote for continuing the best moratorium, because there's more investigations and there's more things that we need to think of in terms of all the angles and all the considerations we need to do. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the council chamber would like to speak on this? Anyone online wishing to speak on the public hearing? So there's a hand there. Is that Bonnie? Has she been recognized? Move. Bonnie, if you want to unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, hi, my name's Bonnie Helms. I'm currently a resident of Tacoma, Washington, but I move around a lot. I've been all over the Puget Sound talking about batteries. It's kind of concerning to me, the mass deployment that's going on. I think that you guys, like everybody else is saying, are pretty smart for protecting your community from being bombarded. I would recommend to continue the moratorium. I agree that with James where he's saying that you guys are probably some of the most educated ones in the area, but at the same time, it's really hard to be educated on a topic that's constantly evolving. Even NFPA 855 hasn't kept up. I don't know if you guys have gotten your hands on the 2026 version. Regardless, the Washington Administrative Code, the fire code that is often cited around energy storage, it doesn't govern environmental anything. It talks about UL testing, NFPA 855, which is, again, constantly evolving. That's talking about fire spread. It's not talking about the evolution of what happens when the components like the heavy metals or electrolytes enter the environment, how they're uptaked into the plants and then into our bodies. So that's totally outside of the fireman's scope of practice. I can tell you that as a nurse. So I would just have you guys continue the moratorium, continue to investigate, and please reach out to Auburn. They are so lacking in education about this. I was there when Julian gave his presentation last week, and they forwarded their regulations out of committee to the council. I don't think they even understand the process of like creating subcommittees. It was kind of embarrassing. So if you guys wanted to reach out because, you know, you share a border with Auburn, that might be a good idea. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you. Anyone else online wishing to address the council? I don't see any other hands. We did receive several letters that to the council on this matter, and those will go into the record as well. So if there's no other public comment, is there any additional direction or questions for staff from the council? No. I did have one. I did see we have a planning commission meeting coming up on the 21st, and we have the PSE and the fire department invited. I would encourage you to spread that invitation to additional interested parties. So if we're going to officially invite them, I think we need to find some other spokespeople that can talk to other issues than just fire and say PSE. Okay. Any other comments? No? Okay. I declare this public hearing closed. So for us tonight, we have a motion to approve a proposed ordinance that renews the moratorium imposed under ordinance number 09-2050 on the acceptance. I'm sure I'm reading the right one. Yeah, acceptance, processing, and or approval of applications for building and land development permits and related land use decisions for battery energy storage system facilities to be located within the city of Covington for a period of 6 months. Was there any?
So moved.
I'll second.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Do you need me to read that again? Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve a 6-month moratorium. I think Jeff, you moved. You want to speak to your motion?
I think it's prudent that we continue to have the moratorium as we get better details, because it changes not just daily, but hourly. The only problem I have with this is that it's only for within the city limits. I wish we could have the moratorium expand as a fire would expand. But I think it's the best thing that we can do, and I appreciate all the input, all the emails that we receive and about this as we continue this process down the road.
Thank you, Jeff. Who got the second? I didn't. Was it Beth? Okay.
I would agree with everything that Jeff said, and I know that we're unsure what the future holds for this. And I know, Selena, you've talked to us about this potential legislation that may come down forcing us to do something we may not be comfortable doing. But the longer we can look into this and continue to take control for our battery energy storage systems within our city to the benefit of our residents is a step that we need to take.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak for or against? Yes, Debbie.
Thank you.
Well, I believe that we did the right thing a couple of years ago in passing the first moratorium. And I might have thought then that we'll know a lot more in 6 months, but we're still learning new things every day. Thank you. This delay. And everything we learn, just for me, just pushes me further and further away from ever wanting to see it come. But I appreciate that we have the opportunity to extend the moratorium for another 6 months.
Anyone else? No. Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve an ordinance that renews the moratorium imposed under ordinance number 09-2050 on the acceptance, processing, and or approval of applications for building and land development permits and related land use decisions for battery energy storage system facilities to be located within the city of Covington for a period of 6 months. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We've extended the moratorium for 6 months. All right. Up next, we'll go to new business. Up next is consider a resolution for the 2026 final annual comprehensive plan amendment docket. Selena, you're up again.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Let me bring up my slide deck. Okay. All right.
Okay, good evening, council again. This is another procedural action that we have to take. So the 2026 comprehensive docket is before you tonight, and I'm going to run through what this means. So we'll go through kind of what that process is, and then the ultimate recommendation to from the Planning Commission to the council. So the docket is a regulatory requirement where anytime that, well, I should back up, a regulatory requirement under GMA regarding our comprehensive plan. So as you know, we adopted our comprehensive plan in 2024, and then every year we have to open up what's called the docket, which then we solicit applications from folks if they want to go through the process of changing anything in the comprehensive plan. And why would someone want to do that? Sometimes we have to do open up our comprehensive plan because there might be a rule or a regulation or a law that doesn't align with the comp plan. So your comp plan has to align with your laws, and your laws feed back up to your comp plan. So that could be an issue. Another one could be a mandate, which is what we've got before us tonight. And potentially if someone wanted to just, rezone a whole area, or a developer could do something private, which is what we saw with the Lake Point development ultimately back in 2012. So those are generally the reasons why someone would come in for a comprehensive plan docket. The process by which we adopt the docket is kind of a tennis match, is how I refer to it with the Planning Commission. So we get the application, then the Planning Commission just looks at it and says, should we take up these issues? And then they give their evaluation of the applications before them, and then they give a recommendation to the council, and the council asks, should we take up this issue? And then you'll make your decision tonight on whether these issues should be taken up and brought back. Then they go back to the Planning Commission where they actually study everything, hold the public hearing, go through the commerce process, go through the legislative process and public hearings. Then they come back with a final recommendation for the council to ultimately adopt those changes to the comprehensive plan. So we're in that first phase. So the Planning Commission received, and these are staff driven this year, was a city initiated amendment to the comprehensive plan. And this amendment is basically left over from all the work that we did under HB 1181. So if you remember, in 2024 and 2025, the Planning Commission did a ton of work, and so did staff, regarding the requirements in the state laws around having a climate element and a resiliency element. So we had to address our greenhouse gas calculations. That we were fortunate to get a sum of money that we were able to go in and do additional work, like auditing our downtown code for energy efficiency. We did a canopy study of all of our our public trees within the city. We did our greenhouse gas evaluation, and then we were able to draft the actual element. Unfortunately, the timing of the adoption of our comprehensive plan and all that work that we did under climate didn't align. So we couldn't adopt climate in 2024 when we did our comprehensive plan adoption. So we had to open up the docket to bring back in that work, to slide that work in to 2026. Under the state law, cities have to have these elements adopted by 2029. We're ahead of that only because we got money from the state to do that work. So our plan is to get that adopted, get that on the books, then that mandate is met. Ideally by the end of 2026, early 2027. So there's a few targeted updates to that. So we'll adopt the element. There's some new appendices. We've got to reconcile some goals and policies, that align with the climate work. So the Planning Commission, who has spent a lot of time working on this, ultimately they held their public hearing and they proposed the recommendation that the council consider these as part of the comprehensive docket for 2026. And then they will take up the rest of the work of getting that integrated and back to you for a final recommendation. And this just kind of outlines those next steps and the commission's recommendation to the council. That is all I have. Thank you.
Any questions for Selena?
So move.
Ben? Been moved and seconded. to adopt the resolution setting the 2026 final comprehensive plan amendment docket according to the requirements of the Growth Management Act. Jeff, you will speak to your motion.
Selena, the planning commission, everybody's done a lot of hard work. They've set this forward and this is just the next step to get it finalized.
Thank you. Christina, will speak to your second.
Sure, compliance is key, and this is a procedural action. I'm just grateful for our planning commission and the incredible staff that we have, which makes this a seamless process.
Okay. Anyone else? Yep.
Just a comment to say thank you for keeping us apprised of all of this throughout the year in study session, so that when we do see the stuff presented before us, we know exactly what you're talking about. That helps so much. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Been moved and seconded to adopt the resolution setting the 2026 final comprehensive plan amendment docket according to the requirements of the Growth Management Act. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Up next, new business item number 2. Authorize the city manager to increase the right-of-way acquisition budget, authorize the sending of offer letters, and allow property settlements not exceeding this new right-of-way acquisition maximum for the Southeast 256th Street culvert replacement and widening project. Don.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight, as mentioned in the subject, this is related to our 256 project, which is east of Kentwood High School, and the culvert that for Little Sue's Creek. And so a number of you will remember several years ago, we had to do some repairs, temporary repairs to that. And so until we could come back with a project where we could actually replace the culvert and actually do widening, we have gotten funding in order to do that for both right-of-way and construction funding through grants, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. So we have now are in the middle of the right-of-way acquisition phase. So we went through and did appraisals and appraisal reviews for all the impacted properties. And so we are now getting ready to send those letters out. And so before we did that, we wanted to come to council, give an update on where we're at on that process. And then also request additional budget for the right-of-way acquisition costs. As mentioned in the staff report, as we were going through these, getting our appraisals back for all the different properties, that increase for the actual, excuse me, appraisals actually increased the right-of-way costs by, excuse me, that's left me here, 389,000. And so, so what we're wanting is a request for that budget authorization to utilize additional budget for that. There was no outstanding item that is the reason for these costs. It's a difference between having a preliminary estimate and then having appraisers go through once they get on the property. There could be additional costs to cure, like impacts to a shed or things along those lines that increase costs. We're also having to pay for costs for temporary construction easements. So if we needed to stand on someone's property to build a wall or something along those lines, we have to pay for those costs to do that. So that's the reason for these costs. I will say, fortunately, with our funding that we have gotten, we've got a TIB grant, which is almost $5 million. We got a King County Flood Control District grant of $1 million. And then we also have a Public Works Trust Fund loan, which is a low interest loan for a little over $6 million. So that comes in a total budget amount of a little over $12 million. Our current estimated expenditures for right-of-way and construction with this increase for the request for the right of way is 11.5 million. So we still have a little bit of unallocated funding, basically a cushion, so to speak, in that. So we're utilizing a portion of that. Well, already in the numbers that I talked about, we still have 610 that's unallocated. That would allow, obviously, if there's additional cost in construction once we get to that point. I will say that the King County Flood Control District, that $1 million was only a partial funding that we got, and they opened up their funding for that again and encouraged us to apply for the rest of that. And so we will be doing that as well. So what this does is because we that low interest loan that we talked about, that I mentioned earlier, we wouldn't take the full amount if we didn't need it. So we don't have to utilize the entire 6 million if the costs come in lower or we have other grant funds that we can use in that case. So we would only use that low interest loan for basically covering the balance of what we need to cover. So with that, that's happy to answer any questions.
I saw Christina first, so we'll start down there. Go ahead.
Thank you. We've already received 1 million from King County Flood Control.
Correct.
Do we know what the rest of the bucket looks like that we could potentially?
So we're evaluating what we should submit for, but it's probably another $1 million to $2 million that we're going to ask for. But they could still only partially fund us, even in that case. But that's what we're looking at to see what portion of that would still apply based on our current estimates and stuff. But that's about the proximity of where that's at.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Jennifer?
Thank you. I have a couple project related questions, especially since we have some Kentwood families here in our presence. One is, we're familiar, because we've been talking about this project for years, where the culvert is and why it's necessary to replace a culvert. But I'm wondering if you could just give a couple sentences as to what that is and what it's doing. And will it, because this part isn't clear to me, widen that section of the road? Currently, when you're going down that road, there's this big red and white,
Yes.
Don't crash into me. I assume that will go away. Will it remain then full 2 lanes until you get to Wax 180th?
So this segment will take that piece that you talked about at approximately, I think that's 168th. So yeah, our existing widening of those kind of our 5-lane section there ended where you talked about. Yes, we would connect into that and continue that widening there. If you are driving through there, the lowest point that you come across, that dip right there, is where the culvert crossing is. And several years ago, we and you can probably see it, we've had to patch the road in there because there's basically been, the culvert was crumbling. And so that was basically allowing the roadway above that to kind of erode over time. So we had to basically line those culverts so we could secure that so it wouldn't continue to do that. So we stopped that. But what we need to do is increase the capacity of that culvert, make it larger to allow the Little Sioux Creek to flow better, excuse me. So that's what this project would do. It's going to make it larger in that case. Also help in storm because we would get debris and stuff that built up on that culvert and cause flooding or back water from that. I keep doing that. Move this away. Yeah. A little too much hands.
Yeah.
So that's what this project would do, as well as extending that 5-lane section to about 173rd, which is I think that is, I have that here. It is by the Four Squares Church that's on the north side. So that ties in that sidewalk there on the south side. So we would have a continuous sidewalk on the south side running all along there. And that the south does have the 2 lanes that open up there again, it keeps going. So we would be tying into that. There would still only be for a section on the north side that we wouldn't have
That would narrow.
5 lanes all through this. So there'd still be a little section, but we'd at least have our sidewalk connected on the south
That
side.
is awesome, especially in such close proximity. And then one last question, timing for this project.
So we have to get through right-of-way acquisition. So that can take, you know, we probably are thinking it's at least close to a year from about now is what we're hoping, you know, to get through all that process. So we're hoping to go out for bid for construction early next year, would be our hopes, as long as there's no issues. And what it is just basically getting through all the necessary property acquisition and going through all that and acquiring all the property that we need in order to do that. So it's just however long that process to get through that takes. But generally should be within a year from now or less, is what we're fingers crossed to do that. And then we'll go right into construction since we have funding for that. Timing for how long that construction process would be is probably close to 2 years or whatever to do. That's, yeah. So it really just kind of depends on the fish window with the culvert and all of that and stuff too that we have to deal with. So the timing of that, you'll probably see a lot of the improvements before that, but before we start beginning to end, it's probably close to 2 years. It could be a year and a half. So.
Okay, I wasn't expecting that long. Thank you. That's very helpful. I love that Kentwood can relate this to their civics class when they give their report.
Yeah.
So I think something like literally right next to the high school
Yeah.
helps with that.
Jeff.
So that was part of my question. I have another question about the construction. How are we able to do it with a culvert when the state is requiring bridges on state highways? Is it because it's not a state highway that we can do it with a replacement culvert?
Yeah, a lot of it just, there's a lot of parameters as far as with the fish bearing and then the size and things along those lines. We are raising the road a little bit and stuff too in that area. So that will help in the sense of getting freeboard is what we'd say, you know, above the high water mark of the stream. And so there's a lot of pieces that go into whether it needs to be technically a bridge or a culvert. A culvert can look like a bridge. If you see it, it can still look like a bridge when people look at, I mean, but there are different just kind of structural pieces that drive that. But in any sense, it's going to still have to meet whatever the requirements are for fish passage and all of those things. Like I said, it could still look like a big arch, but that some people would maybe call a bridge, but the cost associated with that and how you would do that may fall more under the culvert piece. But it's not really like maybe a set of pipes, you know, a little, okay, this is what it is. It would still have to be fish bearing like a bridge would be.
Okay, thank you.
Debbie.
Thank you. So as we're looking into a couple years down the road, is it likely or possible that the construction costs could go up again? I mean, they've gone up to 389,000. Is that possible?
Yeah, it's always possible. I mean, we obviously have some pieces in there as far as inflation and some unknown, you know, that's a little bit why we have some of this 610,000 that could go towards construction. Hopefully, if we don't need it for any more right of way either. But I think that's the reason why we're also still pursuing grants and things like that to help with that and basically try to reduce the amount of that loan that we would need.
Okay, thank you.
Any other quick, yeah, Beth.
To combat that, would we know when we might be able to get it under construction? That would be after the right-of-way acquisition. So even if it won't be completed, it'll be started and under contract with costs. Maybe in a year instead of 2 or 3 or?
Yeah. So before we'd still have to come back to council for awarding the construction costs and stuff like that. So we'll know at that point exactly what we're have ahead of us if there's a shortfall, if we need additional funding or anything along those lines.
Okay.
Any other questions? Dawn, thank you. I really appreciate that we're moving forward with this project. This is one that comes up quite a bit, even in unsolicited conversations with the public, is when are we going to expand that road to 4 lanes? But I think the added benefit is that that will be increasing or improving traffic flow in the city, but also increasing salmon flow in the city as well. And so I'm really excited about this project. So does the council wish to take action?
To move.
Second.
Okay. That it's been moved and seconded to authorize the city manager to acquire, dispose, or lease certain real property interest for the purpose of installing and maintaining certain intersection and road improvements on the Southeast 256th Street Culvert Replacement and Widening Project, CIP 1145, with additional funding allocated to the right-of-way in the amount of $389,609. Jeff, do you wish to speak to your motion?
This project's been a long time coming, and it's nice that it's moving up on the TIP list and that we were able to get this funding. So it's going to be nice once it's finally completed.
Okay, Debbie?
Yes, well, and let's do it before the prices go up again. I'll say that in talking to the folks at Foxwood at their HOA meeting, I missed this last one, but before this concern came up, I mean, they'll be very happy to know that this is moving forward. So, thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak for or against? Okay. It's been moved and seconded to authorize the city manager to acquire, dispose, or lease certain real property interests for the purpose of installing and maintaining certain intersection and road improvements on Southeast 256th Street Culvert Replacement and Widening Project, CIP 1145, with additional funding allocated to the right-of-way in the amount of $389,609. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you, Dawn. That's it for new business. We are now up to future agenda items, and our next meeting is on April 28th. We have interviews that evening starting at 6 and then the regular meeting at 7. Is there anything council wishes to add to the agenda? Okay. Now to council staff comments, and we'll start with Adam.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I have no comments.
Okay. Dawn?
Nothing from me tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Is Ethan on the line? I didn't see. Yeah, Ethan.
Yeah, I'm here. Hi, Mayor. Hi, Council. Nothing from me tonight.
Okay. Selena?
Nothing for me tonight, Council. Thank you.
Casey? Yeah, there's Casey.
Nothing for me tonight either. Thank you.
Wow. Moving fast. Regan?
Keep it rolling.
Yeah, nothing. Okay. Hesitate to add. Mark?
There's no executive session this evening, and I have no additional report. Thank you.
Right. Krista?
I have nothing tonight. Thank you.
Oh. Christina?
Sorry, I'm gonna break
Yeah.
the name.
I've got some stuff.
First off, yeah, good.
No, go.
First off, I'm just really grateful for the volunteers and the commissions that we have. What a wonderful human services meeting that we had with incredible ideas and just to improve the functionality of both the human services and the council time that's spent on allocating money. I wanted to point out that I'm really glad to see that we are continuing to recognize and to remember Captain Savino's sacrifice to this country, as she did give her life in service to this country, and the fact that she's from Covington and that our flags are at half staff made my heart really happy. And I will be going into a skip meeting this Friday, and we'll report later on that.
Great, thank you. Beth?
Oh, yes. Okay. So I did attend the SCA PIC meeting last Wednesday. We did get an update from Executive Director Feldstein, and I think he sent that out to council as well. If not, I'll send the crib notes out. They gave a recap of where the county council is at on the 0.1% rate increase on sales tax to help pay for improvements to county roads. They're still, I think, in a holding pattern. There was, out of all 9 council members, they all wanted some kind of city pass-through so that we could get some of that money back. Since most of the tax revenue, the sales tax revenue, is generated by cities. There was just some debate on whether that should be 40%, 20%, 15%, 12.5%. And we know that our district council member Dunn, he has such a large geographical area. And so he's advocating for a little bit less of a pass through to the cities, but knowing that many of us, our cities border on a lot of those roads, and a lot of those county roads run through, like Covington Sawyer Road, for example, would be a county road that potentially could benefit from some of that funding. So we're still asking for like a list of items, a priority project list of what that might look like. But from SCA's standpoint, at least there's some discussion about trying to give a little bit of that back to the cities so that we can continue to help fund our road projects. The other item that's going to be coming up that we'll be talking about next month is also an additional sewer rate intact. Wastewater Treatment Division is proposing a 12.75% monthly sewer rate increase. They gave us a flow chart of what the expected costs will be for improving infrastructure, and then there's some mandates. So there's 3 different levels of increasing costs. It was a very lively debate, as always, because with SCA, the PIC committee, we're 38 cities, but sometimes there's 38 voices, and they're all on the different ends of the spectrum as to how much money is being spent on things and where the budget priorities are for the county. So we're gonna, I'll send out the email to you all so that you can review what some of the considerations are, and if there's any feedback that you have, we can send to SCA. Next May, the meeting next May, we'll be looking that over and trying to see if we want to draft a letter to send to the county. And had an opportunity to attend the Storehouse Open House on Saturday. So that was a nice event. I know, some of us have volunteered there before, but it was still nice to see the improvements and take the tour and learn a little bit more about where they plan on building the new addition. And looking forward to our Adopt a Street cleanup with City Council on Tuesday. So you see a bunch of us out there on Timber Lane. And I also have to say, I'm really excited about the paving project that's on Timber Lane. And it was, I think, very fortuitous that
Hallelujah.
very fortuitous that I think it was PSE that finished their portion. And it happened to be a week where kids were out of school. So that worked out well. Oh, Covington Water. Thank you. Yes. Sorry, Covington Water. And now we're waiting for the rest of it to happen.
The sewer needs to, they need to get on the ball.
Yeah. And they're, looking forward to getting all that done. So thank you.
Thank you. Debbie.
Thank you. Well, we're so used to looking at our crime stats and they're going down and down and down. And so it was discouraging when we got it this month that they've gone up. But then you have to do kind of a level set that, okay, they're up from the last 2 months, but still when you look at how we've been compared to the prior 2 years, it's still good. But I did have a question about where it was up on larceny. Did that have anything to do with the mail theft, the mail and ID theft ring that you guys caught?
No, that primarily has to do with shoplifting. So our shoplifting's way up, but we have retailers that are participating with us, which is kind of a good thing. As weird as that sounds. So we want retailers to report so that we can do our work. So we have had a lot of participation. So that's a good and bad thing. So.
All right, thank you. And then also domestic violence was up, and that one kind of stings, but all right. Well, thank you, Adam, for everything that you and your team do. Yes, the open house at the storehouse, which has become an annual thing, was fairly well attended. The weather was well, not quite as bad as it was today, but you know, not too many people wanted to go out in the rain and the cold. But I wanted to thank council members Wagner and I call you Beth all the time. So
okay.
sorry.
What are our last names?
For coming and for Jeff for speaking. We did have we've built up good relationships with the community and sponsors, so it was good to see that. And we had two of our legislative representatives there. One had RSVP'd and then couldn't make it. So thank you both for coming. We had a long discussion today, an in-person meeting with the skateboard, and I may be coming back with more information. They're seeking cities to sign on to a letter to Sound Transit is not meeting their obligations. And so cities like, you've probably heard Ballard and Issaquah, not in our area, but they're examples of they've been taxed year over year and promised year over year, and it's being taken away. And today we found out that Sound Transit wants to build a Sound Transit thoroughfare for Marymore, which was never in the plan, and that community has not paid any taxes. So the city of Tukwila is spearheading this letter because they should have had Boeing Access Road was to be a point, and it's been taken off the project plan altogether. And that serves their whole community and the whole south end. So we kind of talked about, while it's not impacting our city, it impacts the south end and the valley area that we're in, Kent, Auburn, Federal Way. So anyway, more to come on that, but it was a pretty hearty meeting in person this morning. And that's what I had.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Jennifer.
I wanted to thank everyone's comments for coming out and giving us public comment on the BES. It is really great to see other communities being engaged. And while yes, council has taken this position, it's on the backs of our city staff that keep us educated and keep the momentum going in their early and proactive engagement. So the thanks is really on Selena over there and to her team. And then I just wanted to mention, you know, the open house. It was great to have those flyers at the food drive because we did give those to people that had more questions about Storehouse. I was sitting outside at a kids' baseball game that entire afternoon. So yeah, not super fun. Someone had a suggestion, and so I'm just going to throw it out there at the food drive because you know, commissioners are there, staff is there with even bringing their kids who really saved the day for some volunteer shortages, that maybe it be renamed from Mayor's Day of Concern to something more broad and representative of the city and the people that support our city. So anyway, throwing it out there to all of us to consider. And as always, it was fun. And we had someone truly donate an entire cart of supplies, and not just food, but diapers. And I mean, yeah, just seeing our community's generosity is always inspiring. Yeah, it's great. That's all.
Jeff.
Yeah, the food drive was outstanding. Even with my girls there, it just gravitates at Safeway with people showing up all the time and bringing full carts or stopping by with cash was always helpful. The open house, I appreciate that you and Stephanie allowed me to speak, and anytime the storehouse needs me for anything, I'm happy to assist with that. Thank you to everybody who showed up for the business awards for the chamber. The city won an award, and Regan won an award again. So greatly appreciated. And just as a reminder, the chamber does do morning meetup, and we did one at the Red Canoe Credit Union at the first part of April, and it was very well attended. So next month in May is at the Emerald Ballet over there in the Home Depot Shopping Center.
Okay.
That's all I have.
All right. There was no RFA meeting. Our last meeting was canceled. Our next, Puget Sound Regional Fire Authority meeting is tomorrow night. So I don't have a report on that. As Debbie mentioned, I did attend the Foxwood Homeowners Association meeting about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. Major issues that primarily they talked about 256. That was about their entire they had about 20 minutes on the agenda, and that's all they wanted to talk about was traffic on their speed, noise, which is one I hadn't heard before, noise going up and down that road, and then ingress and egress into their community. So drafted a response and basically said, you want to talk to Dawn or Regan if you have concerns about these things. So I echo everyone's praise or support for the soon-to-be renamed Mayor's Day of Concern. I too enjoy that. It's one of my favorite events of the year. It's always good to see people come out, like I said, with full carts. And I always find it odd, people just shoving cash into politicians' hands if they're doing something.
It's the only time.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's just really, it's like, okay. So it was really good. And then I did go over to Fred Meyer and announce the Easter egg hunt there, and different, and maybe because Jeff has a more commanding presence, they didn't even wait for the countdown for me. We got to the 5-minute mark and there was probably 200 or 300 kids, and they just went. And so we didn't even really get to officially kick it off. So that was interesting. And then earlier today, I was on the South Sound Mayor's Zoom call. Primarily the agenda items included, and it's interesting, we had Emily here earlier tonight, starting to think about our legislative agenda for the next session. South Sound mayors are looking to get consensus on at least 3 items that they can start talking to our legislators about. They're also looking at possibly holding a town hall meeting with inviting the lawmakers from each of those districts that would be part of those cities to basically hear from their constituents on these 3 issues. So we also talked a little bit about flock cameras and the license plate readers, and it's interesting depending upon what city has what. Kent has turned off their vehicle license plate readers, but still has their flock cameras. Others did not have flock or license plate readers at all. Others are looking at expanding. And then I just mentioned Covington has 8 of the cameras, but we've turned off 1 near Kentwood High School and looking to relocate it. And then finally, there was a lot of conversation about flood recovery from our most recent floods. Pacific was very hard hit during the recent floods and are looking to secure FEMA dollars to help in that recovery. And so they were grateful that the president signed a emergency order to allow for funding. It's just the amount that is possible to be allocated to cities is probably not going to be enough to cover the impact. So that's all I have. That's it for council staff comments. We're now up to the second public comment period. Speakers will state their name, organization, and whether they are a Covington resident. Comments are directed to city council, not the audience or staff. Comments are to be related to city business. Comments are not intended for conversation or debate and are limited to 4 minutes per speaker. For attendees participating by Zoom, click the raise hand button. For attendees participating by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand. Once the city grants permission to speak, press the unmute in Zoom or dial *6 to unmute on the phone. Is there anyone in the council chambers at this time that would like to address the city council? Oh, James. Yep. Go ahead.
Good evening again. This is James Soleil. I'm a Covington resident. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being, concerned about your citizens and our safety and everything. It's, my adventure in this has, got me involved in different cities from all over the US, and it's terrifying how many government officials don't care. Some of them, I shouldn't say this publicly, but like Sarah Perry, she went from catastrophic levels of insurance to needing a $1 million cap for best facilities. Makes you wonder why. But yeah, no, thank you for caring. Thank you for, trying to understand the constantly changing everything. And yeah, so I can say a lot more. I have a lot more I can say, but just thank you.
You. Anybody else in the council chambers wishes to address the council? Anybody online? Don't see any raised hands. Okay, close this public comment period. We don't have an executive session, so this meeting is adjourned at 8:40.